Good afternoon. Welcome to the Fall 2023 Michigan Medicine Adult Memorial Service. Stars are openings in the sky where our loved ones shine. I'm Bruce Paul, one of the chaplains here at Michigan Medicine and the chair of the Adult Memorial Committee. We are feeling so blessed this year to be able to gather in person to celebrate the light of your loved ones. We are also live streaming this memorial service, so welcome to those who are watching online. We are connected, whether we're here in the room or here virtually. We remain united in honoring the loved ones who have died from July 2022 through June of 2023. Not only do we grieve together as we remember our loved ones, but we also hope together as we celebrate their light and their life. While we formally celebrate the love and light of our loved ones today, you can always remember them when you look up at the stars at night, knowing that one of those stars is named in their honor. The name of the star is Saudade, or Saudade 2023. Saudade is a Portuguese word for the love that remains, sadness from missing someone loved, happiness from experiencing their love. And if you look at the back of your program bulletin, or perhaps your invitation if you're at home online, if you have that postcard handy, you can see the name and the coordinates of the star we have named in honor of your loved ones, and we have it here on the screen as well. You can use those coordinates to locate the star, if you like. I would like to point out to those online that the chat is live now, and the moderators will be posting grief processing resources as well as the links to the star coordinates. And there will be a recording available on YouTube so that you can view this again in the future. On behalf of the Adult Memorial Committee, I want to thank all of our speakers, readers, and performing artists who volunteered to make today's program possible. But most of all, thanks to all of you for being here with us and allowing us to honor and remember your loved ones with you. At this time, we're going to begin with our first reading, a poem to set the theme, read by one of our Memorial Committee members. It's actually a different one than is in your program, but it's one of our Memorial Committee members, and just the same. She is one of our caring nurses from our surgical ICU. Please welcome Mary Gagnon.
A light went out on earth for me the day we said goodbye, and on that day a star was born, the brightest in the sky, reaching through the darkness with its rays of purest white, lighting up the heavens as it once lit up my life. With beams of love to heal the broken heart you left behind, where always in my memory your lovely star will shine.
Thank you for that, Mary. Now it is my honor to introduce to you Associate Chief Nursing Officer and Adjunct Clinical Instructor in Nursing in the School of Nursing. Please join me in welcoming Gretchen Pajak.
That's right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining us today at this Michigan Medicine Memorial Service. I'm Gretchen Pajak. I'm the Associate Chief Nursing Officer and the Associate Chief Operating Officer with Michigan Medicine. Together today, we will share in the memories of those who we have loved who've gone before us over this last year. And we will lean into each other as we share in the profound emotions and unique pathway that grief and the celebration of a cherished life have led us to. I had my entire speech planned out until I went to Hobby Lobby yesterday with my son. I'll share with you that I love shopping for Christmas ornaments. It's one of my most treasured memories of my father from growing up. He loved Christmas. He decorated in ways that were unique to decorations only of the 1970s. And they should remain in the 1970s. There were red felt reindeer and glitter things and tinfoil ice rinks and trees that never really fit in the house. And the 80s bought the electric Hallmark ornaments that he had to collect, and I can still hear the little electric Santa's workshop clicking. Those days, those memories for me are treasures. It's been a long time since I lost my dad. I was young, and those memories that still bring tears to me are also the things that bring me joy. Things that I wish I could bottle and share with all of you. And so as my son and I walked around Hobby Lobby, and we looked at ornaments, one drew my attention. And it was in that moment that I knew what I wanted to share with each of you. It was a red and black, very simple ornament with a very profound message. It said, when someone you love becomes a memory, the memory becomes a treasure. A treasure. What's a treasure? Something valuable, something precious, that to the holder has significant value and worth. Treasures that we hold close to our hearts. The grief we feel in these profound times, times of loss, can be a catalyst for us to take action to honor their memory, to share that treasure that they left us with. And so I ask you all, what are the treasured memories that you carry? What are the gems that you share with others in their honor? What grace do you have for yourself in these times? Over the last week, there's been a series of interactions that humbled me, that left me grateful for the gift of hearing and sharing the treasures of others' loved ones. There's a particular woman who I really hope is listening that shared with me the sacred stories of her mother, who she recently lost. She said the impact of the grief and the loss on her and her life, she didn't know how she might move forward or beyond the loss. And what we discovered that day in our conversation was the treasure of her mother and the legacy that her mother had left had profound meaning and created hopefulness and purpose for her. She recognized the treasure of the lessons, the journey of her mother's life, and the love that she left her with in a way so as to move forward and find comfort in the beauty that was the treasure of her memory. And then last night, I had all of this written. I thought it was good. And then through a random series of events, I got to meet a woman named Sandy. Sandy shared the journey of loss she's experienced over the last few years and how she has intentionally honored the legacy of both her husband and her brother. She has used their hope and their love and their joy to move forward and create a better life for she and her daughter. And as we chatted, I was amazed at how she's used her grief as a catalyst to honor them. She shared the gems of their lives with me, how they've inspired her and inspired me through my own process as well. For both Veronica and Sandy, they've experienced the loss of loved ones so dear, but they bravely shared their treasure, the memories of a life lived, honoring them, and in that, honoring themselves and the loss they've experienced. Today, as we remember your loved ones and our loved ones, I encourage each of you to focus upon the treasure that you hold. Consider, if you would, how you will go forward and share the legacy of each unique person and the impacts they had upon your life. The remembrance of a beloved is a precious legacy. The impact that they had on our lives, the lessons that they taught, the love they shared, and the journey we traveled along with them. Today we gather to share these memories for those we loved, cared for, cherish, and miss. I'm grateful to all of you for sharing this opportunity, for sharing the treasures that you have, for giving me the opportunity to share the treasure of my father's quirky Christmas decorating. in hopes that each of you can find your treasures and share them with others. Thank you for joining us today as we gather to remember those you have lost and hold space for yourself in this journey.
Thank you, Gretchen. And now, to read another poem for us, please welcome from the Office of Decedent Affairs, MSW candidate in the School of Social Work, Kara Hollingsworth. Kara?
Look at love, how it tangles with the one fallen in love. Look at spirit, how it fuses with earth, giving it new life. Why are you so busy with this or that, or good or bad? Pay attention to how things blend. Why talk about all the known and the unknown? See how the unknown merges into the known. Why think separately of this life and the next when one is born from the last? Look at your heart and tongue. One feels but deaf and dumb, the other speaks in words and signs. Look at water and fire, wind and earth, enemies and friends all at once. The wolf and the lamb, the lion and the deer, far away yet together. Look at the unity of this, spring and winter, manifested in the equinox. You too must mingle, my friends, since the earth and the sky are mingled just for you and me. Be like sugarcane, sweet yet silent. Don't get mixed up with bitter words. My beloved grows right out of my own heart. How much more union can there be? Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. I now have the pleasure of introducing our first speaker. This speaker is one of our very own caring social workers. Please welcome Gift Chaucevich.
Hello, my name is Gift Chaucevich, and I am a social worker with the Adult Palliative Care Consult Service at Michigan Medicine. In his journal, on November 13th, 1939, Henry David Thoreau wrote, "Make the most of your regrets. Never smother your sorrow, but tend and cherish it, till it come to have a separate and integral interest." The story of how I became a social worker started with a death, my father's death, and the many regrets I had afterwards. My father passed away unexpectedly when I was 15, and a few years later, I learned that the rest of my family knew he was close to death, but chose not to tell me. I spent many years experiencing guilt over not recognizing how sick my father was. He was hospitalized for his heart condition twice in the last 6 months of his life. How could I have been so blind to not know what that meant? There was even a moment when I was alone with him at the hospital, and a nurse came into the room in a panic because his leads had somehow gotten disconnected, and she was afraid he had coded. I also spent many years feeling anger. It was difficult not to believe that there were important words from that time that were lost forever. Because during that same visit, before the nurse came rushing in, my father tried to start a conversation about how sick he was and that he wasn't getting better. I remember that I started to cry, saying, "Don't say that, it's not true." And then another instance, when he was back at home and he wanted to talk to me about something important, and I, in my teenage glibness and insouciance, said something like, "Oh, I already know all that." There was something he wanted to give me in those conversations that I could not receive. I regretted those missed opportunities because without the knowledge that I would not have the chance to return to these conversations later, I had no awareness of how precious that time was. I wondered about what our conversations would have been like if I knew I needed to prepare myself. If I had known, I would have spent my time with my father. Instead of mooning over a teenage crush, I would have told him every day how much I loved him and how lucky I was to have him as my dad. Is it any wonder that when I learned in my late 20s about hospice and its philosophy, it seemed like the answer to a question that I didn't even know I was asking? A friend from high school that I recently reconnected with told me about hospice, as her father had just died with hospice at home. She knew about the circumstances of my father's death and how I was left in the dark. Every aspect of the process she shared with me was met with a resounding yes, of course. This is how it should be. And the rightness of this particular approach to end-of-life care began to soothe this wound inside of me. There is a song by Likeli called "Sadness is a Blessing." And the source goes, "Sadness is a blessing, sadness is a pearl. Sadness is my boyfriend. Oh, sadness, I'm your girl." I was definitely Sadness's girl after my father died, although most of the time it showed up as anger. I didn't smother my sorrow, and at the time I would have said I embraced it. But to fully embrace it, I needed to understand what the blessing and the pearl was. I was only on one side of the experience. My first time volunteering with hospice was at an inpatient hospice in New York City. I found that the training didn't prepare me to be comfortable with my role. It was hard to know what to do when I would visit with patients. There was a significant part of my own experience with loss that was largely unexamined. That lack of reflection stood in the way of my being able to use it to connect with people. I did not have the tools to understand the pearl. A decade later, it was when I volunteered in organizations where there was a contemplative care approach to training that I learned how to truly cherish and tend to my sorrow. I would eventually learn that I could only be as intimate with someone else's suffering as I was able to be intimate with my own. Because the reality is, the person in front of me isn't different from me. They're just on the path ahead of me. It is only a matter of time that separates us. Diving into mindfulness was also necessary for me to be able to recognize that another person's suffering was not my suffering, and vice versa. And that urgency around what do I do eased when I learned that there was little I could really do or say to make things better. It was less about what I would do in those moments and more about whether or not I could show up and be fully present, to accept and acknowledge what the person wanted me to see about them. Seeing end of life from this side of things, I can understand more why my family chose to keep that information from me. Something I often say to families who are sitting vigil in our palliative care beds is, this is the hardest time for everyone. When you're just waiting for it to happen. At 15, I was still very much a child, and I can see that the uncertainty of time could have been difficult for me to bear. It was very likely that I wouldn't have been able to process it without the support that comes with a team specifically trained to care for people and their families at end of life. The next line of Thoreau's journal entry says, "To regret deeply is to live afresh." And I suppose that is what happened for me. I changed my whole life because I wanted to work with this population. Someone I was in class with at the Zen Center for Contemplative Care said to me, "You've been creating a pearl," when she learned of the path that led me to change my career from handbag designer to social worker. She explained that I had taken the experience of my father's death and slowly built up layers of nacre, the mother of pearl coating, around this wound in my life. Although I had many regrets related to my father's death, the ways I eventually found healing created something wonderful that I could give back to my communities. While I can't say that I'm glad for that experience, I am very grateful that the lasting impact has allowed me to be suited for this work in palliative care. I am always so humbled by the trust our patients and families place in our team to thoughtfully guide them through their decision-making process to transition towards the end of their life. It is always an honor to be able to walk with them on that journey while they are in our care. Some of the most meaningful moments while in our care are when we are meeting with patients and their families, and we get to know who they are as a person. We know a lot medically about the people we care for, but we don't often get to see the whole of the person. Being able to hear their stories and learn what they value, either from the person themselves or their loved ones, is an interaction that I hold dear. The love in the room is often palpable when families talk of that patient. And life is what happens in between birth and death. And getting to see those snippets of that person's life is a true gift for us. Sometimes after an intense family meeting, people will say, "You have the worst job." I think I have a very unique job. I'm able to create space and facilitate those conversations that seem too difficult to face, but that are so necessary to have. I share in the vulnerability that I cannot stop the patient's death or change the outcome, but I can stand with them, which can allow a person to experience all their emotions during this time. To help everyone know that they are not alone, they are seen, and that they have the ability to approach these moments bravely and with grace. I remember a patient's family member came rushing into the room crying, but stopped short and turned away from the patient. When I invited the family member closer, they said, "I can't let her see me crying." And I responded, "I think she knows." And we were able to approach the patient together. In some ways, I do think I'm more sadness's girl than I was before, because now I'm able to sit in my sorrow and be at peace. And I can use those experiences to lend equanimity to others during their difficult moments with the end-of-life process. I understand the devastating beauty of my pain is because of the wonderful relationship I had with my father. So I can invite that sorrow closer because I know the only way I could feel less pain would be if I loved him less. And that is a regret that I will never have. I don't wonder what conversations I might have had with my father anymore, but I hope that he had someone to talk to and to process his experiences with. And with that hope in my heart, I try to be that person for others. I listen, I stand with a person in their suffering, and I try and illuminate the dark path to be able to face what is in front of us with courage and compassion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gift. It's so personal and touching. Next, we have another poem, and to read this one from the Department of Spiritual Care, please welcome Chaplain Pat Lindale.
It is enough to know that the atoms of my body will remain, to think of them rising through the roots of a great oak, to live in leaves, branches, twigs, perhaps to feed the crimson peony, the blue iris, the broccoli, or rest on water, freeze and thaw with the seasons. Some atoms might become a bit of fluff on the wing of a chickadee, to feel the breeze, know the support of air. And some might drift up and up into space, stardust, returning from whence it came. It is enough to know that as long as there is a universe, I am a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. And now, our next speaker is the Senior Director for the Office of Health, Equity, and Inclusion and Office of Patient Experience Advisor, but today she joins us at this year's memorial to share about her own personal experiences. So please join me in welcoming our family speaker, Kristen Howard.
Good afternoon. I join you this afternoon deeply humbled by the opportunity to share my experiences. There are so many emotions in this space with me today. Respect for you, for showing up for those you love, honor and love for those who we have lost. I believe I also have empathy and compassion because in some ways, even being here today is a part of continuing to make sense of my own loss. As they shared, I am the Senior Director in the Office for Health, Equity, and Inclusion here at Michigan Medicine, but more importantly, I join you today as a daughter and a sister. I am the daughter of Beverly Jean Howard. She was a social worker here at Michigan Medicine for 25 years. I actually grew up, in part, in the hallways of the University Hospital. But as I entered college, my relationship to this place changed. My mother went from just working here to also receiving care here as a patient to address a cancer diagnosis. What I remember most about that time is not my mother's illness. It is her strength of character, her passion for life, and her love for Christ. My mother was not a social worker because it was her job. It was her calling. And even as she declined, she continued to work and to hustle Mary Kay on the side until just 2 weeks before her passing. I remember clearly the last time I saw her alive. She was proud of me. She loved me, and she dreaded the thought of leaving us. But with her faith, she did not fear death. It was 2002 when I lost my mother. She never saw me graduate college or law school, or have children, or walk down the aisle to be married, or even get my first badge here at the University of Michigan so I could walk to the hospitals just like she did. But her presence, her tenacity, her fierce advocacy for those in need burn brightly in me and honor her memory. I am also the baby sister of Candace Howard. Candace was kind of the golden child. Good grades, good athlete. She joined ROTC and received a scholarship at the University of Michigan. She was beautiful and popular, and like my mother, she was also a social worker. Unfortunately, her career was cut short when the symptoms of multiple sclerosis rendered her unable to work at a young age. Before my mother's death, she saw the beginning of my sister's illness. And another gift my mother left me was a deep belief that nothing came before family and my sister was mine to care for. So my big sister gave me an opportunity to really understand the faith she and my mother had, not just through sermons or readings, but to live out my commitment to love someone without condition and have faith that when all was lost, provision would be made. Now, I refuse to let you all get the wrong idea. Candace was not always the perfect patient, although not a burden, and I was never a perfect caregiver. It was a frustrating and overwhelming experience, exhausting. We took some big losses along the way. We fought Medicare and Medicaid and MDHHS together. And although my sister's condition was aggressive, it is again not the losses that I remember most. I remember most the bright lights that shone through our desperation. I would be remiss if I didn't mention all of the amazing physicians, nurses, and staff at Michigan Medicine who shepherded her care. I am personally especially grateful for Dr. Pelletier Cameron from the Department of Urology and Dr. Philip Choi from Pulmonology, who cared for my sister and walked beside our family until the end. I'm sure some of you have caregivers who are especially important and shine brightly in your memories. I remember my sister's bright smile and her graciousness. Even when she couldn't move her arms or legs, she rarely complained. I would sit my niece and nephews on her chair with her, and they would hug her tightly, and somehow, through everything, she had so much joy in family and being loved. And even when words escaped her as we drew closer to the end, her eyes still lit up with recognition when we entered her room. These are the things I remember and hold close. She too embodied the faith of my mother and believed that she would see better days. Honestly, we thought those better days would be on this side of her journey. I was with her until her last breath. We sat together, my sister Kelly, my 3-month-old son cradled in my arms, and on February 13th, 2021, she made her transition. I want to share something very personal here. In the last year, as she declined, I started to pray for relief, for fewer emergencies, to be free from caregiving and the sadness it sometimes brought. I prayed for healing, be it temporal or eternal, and I was filled with such tremendous guilt when the final answer was that her healing would not be found in this life. I wondered if I had somehow betrayed someone who I loved so deeply. I am grateful that time can heal, and God, as I understand or conceptualize him to be, is very gracious. The guilt has faded, but the love remains. For me, repaying the debt I owe to Candace, to my mother, to myself, and even to the greater world, which I feel we're all a part of, meant dedicating a significant part of my life to health equity and working towards easing the journey of care for other families in need of medical help. And so I joined the team at Michigan Medicine later on that year in 2021. I think that we who remain, family members, mothers, husbands, wives, best friends, sisters and brothers, now play our role in a different kind of healing. We can bind up the wounded, broken hearts of our loved ones. Our presence can be a salve that eases the pain of sorrow. And now we set a new plan of care and determine how we will learn to rebuild lives that can seem very broken at the end of these journeys. For me, there haven't been perfect answers. There have been some very good days when I'm able to help another family navigate this health system, when my children remember my sister or ask about my mother who they never met. I know their memories continue to be a blessing. It is my prayer that each of your loved ones' memories continue to be a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristen. And we're so grateful that you shared those memories and your openness with your experiences. Thank you very much. Today's final speaker, whom I have the pleasure of introducing, is one of our distinguished physicians and assistant professor in the Department of Family and Palliative Medicine. Family Medicine and Palliative Care. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jane Shargott.
Thank you. First, I would like to thank the Planning Committee for inviting me today to speak with all of you. I'm incredibly honored to be here in representation of my fellow faculty, the staff and the resident doctors who have cared for your loved ones. To introduce myself to all of you, my name is Jane Shargott. I am a physician here at Michigan Medicine. I practice both family medicine as well as palliative care. Prior to becoming a physician, I was a cardiac ICU nurse in the south side of Chicago for 7 years. All in all, I have been caring for patients now for almost 20 years. As a nurse in the ICU, we fought back death daily, and I gained a respect and appreciation for that battle, for mortality, and especially for peace and dignity in the end of life. I particularly hold dear the memory of Tom, one of my first patients who gave the gift of allowing me clear-eyed recognition for that peace and dignity in the end of life. He was young. He was in his 20s, the same as I was, and in chronic rejection of his transplanted heart. I cared for him many, many times over those years, and I came to know his parents and his family. He died with his parents and myself holding vigil at his ICU bedside. And afterward, we watched him together. It was the first time I recognized the depth of this care, the sacredness of washing him with his mother. It was the first time I realized that what I did in those moments mattered. Not only those medical interventions, administering medications, managing his IV lines, his monitors, and all of those other medical things, but so much more, that the emotional caring of him and his family really mattered. With Tom's nudge down the path, I now care for patients with complex, life-limiting disease daily. As part of the palliative care team here, I am often a guide for patients and their loved ones when living transitions to dying. I don't know any better than anyone out here what happens after we die. But I have a sense of what I believe. I don't believe that any of us can do the job that we do without searching for a meaning that resonates within us. I have been a reader since I was very young. One of my favorite authors in those formative adolescent years wrote the following passage, which has been with me since that time. All the atoms that were them, they've gone into the air and the wind and the trees and the earth and all the living things. They'll never vanish. They're just part of everything. And that's exactly what will happen to you. I swear to you, I promise on my honor. You'll drift apart, it's true, but you'll be out in the open, part of everything alive again. As your physicians, we do all that we can to keep those atoms together. We keep those bodies that we have been charged with alive, well, and vigorous. But we also know that we can often only do so much. And then the atoms drift away from us. They become us, and they guide us for our next patient. Our legacy is what we leave behind as we drift off as atoms. It will be the foundation that those who love us carry forward. It is how we live on and on within those who have cared for us. We become a deep root for generations to come. We will have formed the past and the future. My grandmother, Jean, passed away days before my first child was born. And during that fog of labor, I had a very clear idea that she was there with me, that she had helped choose the little soul that I was bringing into the world, and that she was guiding him to me. I don't remember much of those 3 hours, but I remember knowing that he was mine and that she was with us. I also believe that that clear sense of her presence at that time meant that she has never felt gone to me. She is always here. And I don't mourn her the same way that I mourn others that I have lost. Before any of us are physicians, we are people. We carry those we love with us, and we carry those we have cared for professionally with us. As I look out at all of you, I know that the losses that you have had over this past year are enormous. I can imagine that even being here is very difficult for many of you. We are honored to have been here, to have cared for them, and to have been given the opportunity to have done so. We recognize that we would have wanted another outcome, but we want you to know that their legacy lives on. You will hold them with you always. They are part of you. They make you who you are, and because of that, make the next generation as well. They are your foundation, and they form the future. In turn, they have shaped our future, and we will carry their legacies as well. They will not be forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shargat. And now, accompanied by music from our own Bob Huffman on guitar, Desmond Bratton on bass, Jesse Morgan on piano, and Stacy Salas on harp, we come to a special time, a time dedicated to honor your loved ones, to cherish their memories and celebrate their light. I encourage you to take out your tea lights that we gave you, and as you see your loved one's name, raise your candle high. so many loved ones who brought light into the lives of so many others. It is such an honor to share this time with you. And now, with a responsive reading of remembrance from the Department of Spiritual Care, would you please help me welcome Reverend Al Daniel.
Good afternoon. I'm going to need some help. When you hear me say we, please repeat, remember them. At the rising of the sun, and at its going down, we. At the blowing of the wind, and in the chill of winter, we. At the opening of the buds, and in the rebirth of spring, we. At the blueness of the skies, and in the warmth of summer, we. At the rustling of the leaves, and in the beauty of autumn, we. At the beginning of the year, and when it ends, we. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we. When we are weary and in need of strength, we. When we are lost and sick at heart, we. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we. When we have joy we crave to share, we. When we have achievements that are based on theirs, we. For as long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Daniel. Please now enjoy a moment of music with our quartet and with Reverend Tracy Huffman on vocals as they perform Beth Nielsen Chapman's I Find Your Love.
Thank you, Bruce. I want to thank these fine musicians, music therapists, and music practitioners, and that. We hadn't played together at all except for this past Friday for a little bit, and it's been a joy, so thank you. I think I can speak for them to say that it's an honor to be here and to perform this next song for you. As Bruce mentioned, it is a song by Beth Nielsen Chapman, and she is a singer-songwriter that resides in Nashville, but she lost her husband to cancer probably 25 years ago now. But during that time, she was in the middle of an album project, and she came out of her deep sorrow and pain this beautiful song, and it's called I Find Your Love.
That was truly special. Thank you very much for that. As we come to a close today, we have joined together to remember and honor all of those who have died over the past year with the common connection of Michigan medicine, connected through our humanity, not as clients or patients, but as people, loved and missed. We are thankful for each one of them and the light they left in our lives. May peace and healing embrace each person here. May the blessing of light be upon us as we continue to remember those who have died. May the treasured memories comfort us, for they have left a light in our hearts that will shine forever. May their light gleam bright as we continue to heal. May their legacy of love and light live on through all the lives they touched, and may each of us find and connect with the source of our peace as we gaze at the shining stars. Amen. Before you leave today, I could humbly ask if you'd return the electric tea lights that we passed out so that we can use them again. And there'll be a basket outside for you to do that. And you enjoy some light refreshments in the lobby. This concludes our program. Thank you all for participating and sharing your loved ones with us. Peace be with you all.